Hi, this is Bob Roberts, class of 1982.
Hey, it's Ramblin' Randy Page, former host of the Sunday Morning Sports Page.
Hi, this is Rams on WVCS FM 92, California, PA.
Hi, I'm Rich Bogard, class of 04.
Hi, everybody. Trapper Tom Leturgey, class of 1990.
Hey, friends. Bobby O, class of 1987.
This is Mike Earthquake Fell, class of 91.
My name is George Michaels, and you're listening to 91.9 WVCS.
Hi, this is Steve, class of 2016, currently on air at Alt 92.3 in New York City.
Hey, this is Golden Gary from the class of 1998.
Hey, this is Evan Peffer from the class of 2020.
Hey, this is Just Ed, class of 2019.
Hi, this is BJ, class of 1998.
Hi, this is Cris Winter, and you are listening to Power 92.
WVCS came at a time for me when I went to Cal U a year after graduating high school in 1985, and I came to WVCS and Cal U with some radio experience beforehand. I worked for WRML in my hometown of Portage, PA, so I kind of had a little bit of an idea about the radio business when I got here, and I really learned a lot about people and professionalism and really dealing with people. And many of my best friends that I've have from those days are my best friends to this very day. When I was diagnosed with cancer earlier this year and had a rare bone cancer removed from my fibula, two friends came to visit me, Bob Orkwis and Bill Caraway, two friends from WVCS. And Bob Orkwis and I remain good friends to this day. We're involved with the world of professional wrestling in Pittsburgh. I'm the ring announcer and he's the owner of the Keystone State Wrestling Alliance. But WVCS for me back in the day became a morning host with Digger. I can't remember his last name at the Digger Rary. I did that for a little while, and then I had a morning show of my own with Drew Gordon for a couple of years. Did sports, did news, loved every minute of it. My very first girlfriend, my first wife, was somebody I met at Cal U, and Colleen even did a voiceover or two for us on WVCS back in the day. And WVCS and Cal U was a reason I have my son Taylor, and many fond memories of WVCS. Like I said, best friends that I've ever had were born in the basement of that student union. When Joan Jett came to Cal U in 1990, Norm Hall was a student that on the side he made guitars, and he wanted to give a custom guitar to Joan Jett. Before the concert, she was having a meal at the student union. A bunch of us were prepared to give her the guitar. I kind of snuck in, really. I wasn't involved, and I wasn't on the invitee list, but I went anyways just to check it out. And she wasn't going to come out, and her handler came out and said that this wasn't going to happen. She wasn't going to get the gift guitar from Norm Hall, and he was crestfallen. It was something that he wanted to do. So, of course, I said, we'll give it to someone who will appreciate it. The guy lunged at me, and I decided to, hightail it out of there. And I ran and hid in the student union, and it became a big story for me to this very day. And I understand just somebody today told me they believe that they gave that guitar to Joe Grishecki, a proud Cal U alum. But yeah, I could go on and on about my time at WVCS, being able to walk from my off-campus housing at 5:30 in the morning to do the 6 a.m. show, first with George Saltrick and then with Drew Gordon, or vice versa. My sports casting with Dan Szabo, my friendships with Bob Orkwis, Mike Fell, Bill Caraway, a lot of people that I had dear friends with, and it's all because of Cal U and WVCS.
It was an amazing time, and it was a great time for music because there was a lot of change going on at that time. Rock and roll and hair metal was on its last legs. Alternative music was really starting to come to the forefront. The grunge scene and the movement at that time, along with bands that were just breaking the molds, like a Weezer that was out there, or The Offspring, or some of the other ones that were coming through. And being in college radio, of course, you were breaking them before they would hit the major airwaves. There was nothing bigger, no bigger rush than having a song that you played on college radio then show up on the top 40 station or the alternative or the rock station and saying, you know what, we gave this band a chance before anyone else did. And I think that's where college radio does have its niche and its importance, is when you're able to be on the forefront of those new things, because it's still in the heartbeat of every college student who wants to go out there and blaze their own path, blaze their own trail. And the college music scene, they even have a college music radio station on satellite radio because of the importance of it. So if you're in college radio, I just recommend to blaze your own path, blaze your own trail, use the rules that are out there as your guide, but be who you want to be as long as it's within the FCC regulations. That was a rush, and I'll tell you, we had the benefit of having some pretty good alumni who would come back and give us some direction. You'll probably see in one of these interviews Cris Winter or Beth Bershock. There's another guy, Ron Molinaro. His name is the Ron Man, and he was on stations like B94. So being able to know that you could start here and get to there was very promising. You just had to play it right. And there's also a local radio station that was here. WESA 98.3 was a top 40 station down here that was actually taking a lot of what we were doing and building off of it. And that's a big thing now, with radio being not territorial as much as it was. Like, your signal does limit you, but you can go on the internet and go anywhere you want to. Back in the day, you would go around just to find inspiration. I know when we took our spring break and we went down to Key West in Florida in '98, that was incredible, listening to stations in Miami and in Charlotte and all those other cities. If you're really into radio and broadcasting, you can really get inspired and build something of your own. And so when you're in a place like this, as close to Pittsburgh, also as close to Morgantown, you can do a lot of great things that get noticed. And we were in the papers and the trades, and that was just truly, truly amazing.
Anything else?
For anybody for anyone who has spent their time with me in those years that I was at, WVCS was at the time, but now WCAL, thank you. You're the best friends that I ever had. You mean so much to me, and more than anything else, my life is better because I met all of you. Whether you were there on your way out as I was coming in, or I was just on my last legs trying to make it through my senior year, if I met you, you made my life better, and that's one of the best things about that radio station.
Met some great people and had some really fun times at the radio station back in the mid-'80s. WVCS, the voice of Cal State to oldsters like myself. But today's generation, the digital age of radio, they don't know the fun of carts warbling and warping of records, actual vinyl records, and putting quarters on styluses to make those records play. So that's old school. Nice way to say I'm old, which I am. Did a morning show, Bobby O and Digger in the morning, probably the lesser half of that morning show. That was fun times, but mainly my chops were formed on sports broadcasting. Was able to be the sports director, following up Paul Chestnut in his day, and traveling around this great state of ours and other states like West Virginia. You never had fun until you've been in Elkins, West Virginia in the middle of the winter. Yeah, I was a little bit frightened that day. But I want to say this without throwing my partner under the bus. His first name rhymes with Miss. His last name rhymes with Ring. Okay, it was Chris King. He was driving. I was co-piloting on your trip to Edinburgh, where there's snow 10 and a half months out of 12 months of the year. And he proceeded to take the SAI vehicle and do donuts in the, I believe there's a hotel parking lot up there. And it was fortunately, the first and only time that I've ever had anyone come out and threaten to put me under citizen's arrest. So we hightailed it to the gym at Edinburgh, made sure we parked off in the distance and hid the car, and it was, frightening at the time, but a funny experience now. Also, I have been involved in meeting some great people, including a really good close friend of mine, Trapper Tom Leturgey, and we have been involved in the professional wrestling scene in and around Western Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh specifically for a lot of years. And the KSWA is that organization. Might have got its teeth for both of us in the radio station back room. We share a love not only for professional wrestling, but a love for professional baseball. So probably have had more fun out of professional wrestling than we've had during the professional lean years of Pirates baseball. But the WRWF, the World Radio Wrestling Federation, got its inception in the back rooms in the library at the old radio station at WVCS. And may or may not have found out that 33 1/3, when smashed over someone's head, made a good sound and they broke rather cleanly. May or may not have done that. So some of the things that I hold near and dear to my life now got their start back in the 80s at WVCS. So always and forever we'll treasure those memories. So enjoy it as long as you can when you're there. It's fun and it's good stuff. So thanks for listening.
A lot of fun memories.
Friends under the bus?
Like the earlier Tom Leturgey said, you know, made a lot of great friends at CalU, WVCS. Like I remember Bob Orkwis touched on a WRWF. I'd just like to mention I was a 2-time champion. I beat Eric Jewish Fly Drucker in the record library in a no holds barred 2 out of 3 fall match.
Hey, I retired as a WRWF champion, by the way. 3 times.
I was also manager of Jim the Snake Rossini, who was a WRWF champion. Got my start coming to CalU not really knowing what I wanted to do, but had a love for music. A friend of mine said, hey, why don't you come over and check out the radio station? That friend was Cletus McConville, who actually introduced me to the lady I'm married to today. So I went over, went to SAI meeting. They got me involved. I started doing news and sports, which eventually led to me being on air. And I can remember my first show, I was so nervous, and a sweet gal by the name of Megan McGill said that, hey, I'll sit with you and make sure everything goes okay. So Megan calmed my nerves, and eventually led to me and Megan doing a show called Love Ballads, to where she was the lovable, soft-hearted type, and I was the old suck it up and go out and find another fish in the ocean type of thing. But I had a lot of good memories. I played on a 92 crew softball team. Fond memory there, Tom and I. Tom was the coach, and we were playing WDVE. And one of their DJs at the time, Cris Winter, who I believe is also a CalU alumni, she was on first base. I was playing third base. Ball was hit to me, and me forgetting that we had a runner on first base, I throw the ball over to first and darn near decapitate Cris Winter. And to this day, I'm thinking, my goodness, I could have killed the girl. So thank God, my aim wasn't that good. And also in the same game, I hit a ball that I thought that I was faster than I possibly was, and tried to stretch a double into a triple. And the umpire called me out, and I jump up, say a few things, and I said, how can you call a fat guy out that ran so far? But everybody so far, I'm sure, has been saying, you met a lot of great people, CalU, at WVCS, I should say. A lot of stories, a lot of fun times in the record library, in the back room. Although things have changed over the years, like Bobby O stated, record skipping, the cart machines, and now we're in the digital age. Everything has changed, and just glad to come back and see a few friendly faces and see how much things have really changed.
One of my favorites, we kind of made it a little bit of a tradition. Every record store day, we would basically get probably about 7 to 10 DJs, pile up in a car and head to Pittsburgh, and basically bounce around from record store to record store, just buying vinyl records. And then usually there would be someone doing an entire show for 4 hours completely on vinyl. It was pretty much mayhem, but it was a lot of fun. When you're doing a show at WCAL, you're pretty much the only one running the show. Everything from the music to what breaks you're going to do, what you're going to be talking about. So kind of that quick, on-the-spot thinking of trying to create compelling content for the listener.
All right, my favorite memory from my time at radio, I have two, one of which I'm going to give in the speech out there, but the other one I'll say the very first time I was on air. Me and my partner, Dan Sparks, were getting ready to play our first song ever, 6 a.m. in the summer. And we wanted to play Loser by Beck, which was a huge hit when we were on the air at that time. And we may have skipped listening during a lot of the training, and the carts at the time were just used to hold place. There wasn't actually any music or the correct music on it, so we didn't know that. So we put what we thought was Beck's Loser to start our huge career in radio, and it ended up being a half erased version of a Janet Jackson B-side. So that was very scary for us, because then we didn't know what was happening. And then we turned the mic on, and then we didn't talk for a few minutes. So that was how things started. And the other story I'll save for another time.
Let me see. I got involved in
You can swear a little bit.
radio back in 1978. Station manager at that time was Dennis Galloway. Dennis was funny because Dennis was really serious even back then. He was a good guy, but very serious. And meanwhile, I was also involved in the theater department, so I got involved with his, not involved, but doing theater with his future wife. Her name was Rhonda, but back then she went by Mihalik. So, and we had a good time because she was always busting on Dennis, because she's the one more of the wild side that would pick on Dennis for being too buttoned down. But it was a great time back then, and I tell the students even now, it was a lot of fun being a jock back then because you had so much to do. You know, nowadays you walk in, it's all digital. You could have laid out your whole show the day before on your phone or on your laptop and come in and just do a show. Back then, man, you had to pull the albums. You had 2 turntables. You had to line up your cart machines to play for your stop set. You know, you're talking about now reintroducing a format. Format back then, legal IDs, top and bottom of the hour, stop sets at the 20s. And that's what you did. And, you know, stop set comprised of, you know, the weather, you know, underwriting if we had any. And that's what composed a stop set. And as a jock back then, you did a lot more talking. And I think that's something a lot of the students today have lost the art of, because I think it goes into the bad side of social media, because they're so used to, if they can't text you, they're afraid to open up and talk and everything like that. Hell, I love talking. I mean, I can remember back in the day, a little bit past then, back in the 80s, doing the original Breakfast Club show with Father George Saltrick. He wasn't a father back then, but now he's a father. And, you know, we used to get up and do that morning show twice a week for a year and a half. And, you know, back then you had to wait to do a morning show because that was what everybody wanted. They wanted to do morning shows. Nowadays, these kids, that's the last thing that happens, morning shows, because they want to stay in bed. But radio was different back then. But it was always a good time because, again, just like CUTV, radio was something you could go and get your degree in, well, radio, TV, and communications, or you could be a business major or any other major, but you could get involved, hands-on experience with radio. And the people that got involved with WVCS, then WCAL, they really took it to heart. I mean, they worked hard. Never got paid, but they worked hard at their craft, and they really supported things, and they showed up and DJ'd things on campus. I mean, you heard some of the people here today. I'd forgotten until Cris Winter reminded me when Cris came in that I was the first one that I showed her around campus back then. I was working on orientation too, so I drove her around campus, showed her around campus, and, you know, talked her into coming to the radio station and everything like that. You're here so long, and I'm sure like you, and I'm looking around the room, by the way, Gary's there and Jeff's there, my compatriots, so they've been here, they know the feeling now. You're here so long that the years start blending into each other, and you start seeing these students coming back, and they're coming back with their families and their kids and everything, and you forget how much time has passed. You know, I'm sitting here today talking to George Mihalik. I knew George, he's now going by Michael, but I knew George, and you saw the picture of George with the black hair and the mustache, and now, of course, he's an older gentleman, you know, semi-balding. I'll be kind and say semi-balding. But there was a lot of fun and activity back in the old days of radio, and it was a great time to be involved with the radio station, because, I mean, to this day, I can still remember, you know, putting a record on the turntable and starting it, and then, you know, quarter turning it back so it would start when I could spin it, start it up for when I needed to go. There was a lot of things you had to learn to do back then, but it was fun.
Some of my best memories, of course, are the fact that after all this time, some of the people that I met at the radio station are still some of my dearest and best friends. We've had great times together. We've been to each other's weddings. We've seen each other's have kids, and we've just always been there for each other. And that's probably my best thing about being involved with the radio station.
And any crazy stories from like time on the air, like in the booth, like equipment not working, have to think on your feet, or?
Yeah, there was one time I was playing Joe Walsh, Rocky Mountain Way, and was trying to get the cart deck. They used to play things on a cart. Was trying to get it to work, and I was trying to do the ID at the same time, and the cart wasn't working, and I said SHIT on the air, involved in the ID. Sweet. Great memory. Honestly, I've been wanting to be a DJ since I was 11 years old, and when I was looking at colleges, Cal State universities, or Cal State College, at the way it was at the time, was basically where I really wanted to go. I looked at a couple other schools, but I came here and I met with J.R. Wheeler. It was 1979, and JR gave me a tour of the school and was very passionate about the radio station, passionate about the campus and what Cal U had to offer, and I just kind of knew I had to be here.
I was the station manager in 1981, and all of a sudden, we held the meetings and we had to take attendance, to see who was there, to see who would become a voting member. And that time, a young lady walked in, and I walked up to her and said, "Your name?" And I got the name. It was Cris Winter. And I said, "Well, if you attend 2 meetings, then you'll be able to vote." And I said, "Hopefully you'll come back." And now, some 38 years later, she's still coming back.
So you let her vote?
Yeah, I did. She did get the vote. She did get the vote. But yeah. Just some of the memories there. I mean, obviously you'll see we're pretty representative from the early 80s. We're still friends with a lot of people. We don't see them as much as we would like to, but it's just really neat. I mean, my best man's here, Mark Stepko, seeing Ken Vesley here, and just seeing some of the older, the other guys. The one guy that brought me into this radio station was Keith Duvall, Frenchie. And I met Frenchie when I was in the 9th grade at Charleroi, and he basically, we became friends. I thought he was one of the teachers at the time, because Frenchie has never aged. He's been the same since he was a teenager. But he brought me up here to Cal, and he showed me around. He showed me all, where my classes would be. And I was a commuter the first semester, and he wanted to get me on the radio station because he knew my love of music. And he brought me into that radio station, and it opened my eyes to, different people, being able to, work with different people. And he just was one of those people that I just wanted to see here today. And I stay in touch a little bit with him, but seeing him again today was just so heartwarming. And he means the world to me. And he was my disc jockey at our wedding. So, when you're running a radio station, I lived in McCloskey all the 3.5 years, and so I was real close. You could run over, especially in the middle of the night, you turn on a radio and there's dead air. I'm like, he's asleep. You knew what was going on, so you'd run over there and have to wake somebody up. And just, as I was talking to people before, we had cable TV in the back room of the radio station. So we had HBO, so we could see movies. We had entertainment. And if the statute of limitations is up, we would have the Ouzo parties below. Yeah, the Ouzo parties were incredible. We'd buy a bottle of Ouzo and we'd steal the pop from down at the cafeteria. And so we had a good time there. And I remember somebody coming in after one of those saying, "Why does it smell like licorice?" Somebody had broken a bottle. So John O'Malley, we won't hold that against you. But and then also, I mean, the other friends. My college roommate was Vince Oliver. He's here today. Just people that weren't even in radio or wouldn't even thought about it, but their love of music brought us all together, and we came out there and we got to play music, and I guess people were listening. We'd get calls. One night I was playing the B-52s, and this, alternative music. The phone rings, and this is like probably 12:30 in the morning on a Saturday night. The guy on the other end says, "I know where the radio station is. I will come and kill you if you play that again." So you learn your lesson. So, but yeah, there's just so many things. It really, I mean, obviously meeting my wife was the best thing, and meeting all these great friends.
Yeah, some of my greatest memories from the radio station was coming in Sunday morning around 6:45 in the morning, going into the Sunday morning sports page, and it was a mix of classic rock along with sports talk. And being that 7 was a little early in the morning, I always went with the worst matchups of the NFL week then, and then build up to the best matchup. And 9 times out of 10, and especially in '97, it was the Steelers. So always had a lot of fun, and it always had all sports, basketball. Even had 10 minutes of soccer every show at the 9 o'clock hour. So it was a load of fun. And that best thing I remember about the radio station were, well, back in the day, we used to actually have to do the carts before, like I was like on the last edge of where we recorded PSAs and shows on cart machines before we transitioned over to the CDs. And that it was pretty cool too how we had CDs, carts, and the old 33 1/3 vinyl albums as well. And I played a little bit of each on every show. And I can't say enough about the camaraderie of all the people down at the radio station. And it was an amazing time and a lot of fun, especially in the back room, which is now the CUTV tape vault, and that used to be a kind of a hangout for WVCS and CUTV, and there were a lot of folks that did both, like myself, and a lot of good times out there. But yeah, basketball was awesome, especially traveling out to all different places in Pennsylvania, and I know my personal favorites were Lock Haven, because it was a kind of beautiful, picturesque, especially the field house at the bottom of Huber Jack Stadium. And another one was Mansfield, because it had a nice balcony on the top where like you felt right on top of the action. Didn't make many trips to Mansfield, but they were certainly memorable.
My favorite memory is probably still gotta be from my lock-in my freshman year. The last night I had the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. shift, and around like 4:30 I fell asleep. And I remember Alicia coming in and waking me up and starting hers early, and she was like, just go sit on the couch. I am the station manager for the 2019-2020 year. I started my sophomore year as the assistant business director and moved up to business director junior year. And now I'm station manager, and I feel like it's going to go really well.
The other memories are, of course, working at the station were the national championship in 03-04, the women's basketball team. And as time went on, the emergence of Coach Luckhart and the football team coming back to prominence. But I always had fun at the station, and of course it benefited my career greatly, and what a better place to be than Cal U. We went out to a lot of games. It was always fun going out on the different college campuses, traveling. We went to Charlotte one year for the women's basketball. Of course, we went to all the PSAC campuses. It was always nice going up to Lock Haven, since it was right along the Susquehanna, and there's beautiful view of the stadium, football stadium. Of course, they had that old tartan turf like Three Rivers Stadium, and just a lot of good memories.
My first few weeks at school, learning from Long Island Ice Steve and his show, and the start of what we called the kombucha trials, which were just us drinking fermented tea called kombucha on air, and all of us nearly vomiting. So that started something, and it kind of became a freshman initiation, not hazing, because we can't call it hazing, but we didn't make anyone do it, but it was fun when they did. It was always a good time. Beyond that, it just became a really good learning experience. I feel like I really honed in a lot of skills there that I never thought that I'd be interested in having, or let alone have the ability to do, such as making drops. And I just never thought I'd be as interested as I was. And beyond that, you know, you get free concert tickets through 4 years, so there's a lot of memories at a lot of concerts. Got to see a lot of my favorite bands because of being a part of the station and getting to meet a few of them, and also getting to get a good bit of IDs from them. Flip the Table was something that was way too short-lived for as good of an idea as it was. It was myself, the current station manager, Evan, and Zach. and we started this morning show because we realized, no one has a morning show right at the time. And we're just like, we need to bring something back, make it fun, like we heard all these stories about. And so myself and Evan came up with this idea to start a show where we just play board games on air every morning, and we talk about how we play through it. And we're like, two of us can't just do it. We need another host. So we brought in Zach, and then every day we would bring in a new guest. And we never repeated a guest until the very finale of it when we brought in Alicia. Oh, the morning where we played Twister, too. We brought in Joe Carter, DJ Professor Carter, and we played Twister. And myself and Zach had a little surprise for him in that we both wore gym shorts but wore booty shorts under them. And so when we started playing Twister, we just took the gym shorts off and surprised Joe. And then as Twister goes, you get into weird positions where, you get your butt up in the air and it's interesting. And so me and Zach facing the window, like butts facing the window, and then Pam walks by and is just aware of everything that is there to be seen.
I have 3 good stories.
Okay, let's hear.
My first story would be in my senior year, we enabled a lot of the folks that can't be here today for different reasons. Some have passed away, and others through whatever situation didn't enable them to attend. I invited a lot of alumni back to actually be on the air. And this was, of course, at the old station, not where we're at now. But we had 2 big rooms there, and there was a back room. And the back room was where a lot of we kept the albums, and there was a couch, and it was a big meeting room. Well, we kind of brought them in overnight between midnight and 6 and enabled them to come in and do an hour, on the air. We had a big card game. And of course, we broke a few laws as far as the alcohol policy. But it was a fun time to enable a lot of people that were actually working in commercial radio to come back and share back to the station. That would be the first story. Second story is, we were heavily involved with J.R. Wheeler and SAI at that time of concerts that were coming in to the university. Of course, when I started, it was a college turned into a university. And one of the performers was Pure Prairie League. Well, Pure Prairie League at that time had an individual who's very young, about our age, actually, that turned into one of the greatest country superstars in the history of music, and that was Vince Gill. Vince Gill was touring with them at the time, and the power went out. It was very hot in the old gym, and there was no AC, and the equipment overheated, and the show got cut kind of short. Well, we were backstage to do interviews, and one of the interviews was going to be with Vince Gill. Vince was in total disarray of just shattered, crying. And they were telling him, nope, you can't call home. We don't have the money for you to call home every night. He was homesick. And at that particular time, because of my position and a little bit of knowledge, I asked if it would be okay if I could make that happen. And I was told, well, you're just a college student. You don't have any money. And that's true. Didn't have any money. But I said, I can make this happen. I said, just give me a few minutes. Let me get a phone set up. I'll have him call his mother, and he can talk as long as he wants. When that was all done, they had to get a move on. We had a bunch of signed records. We had a bunch of autographs. But I was told at that time that he will never forget you. As long as he's performing, that he would never, ever forget me. And I never thought too much about it. But 20 years later, him and his wife, Amy Grant, were playing in my hometown, where I was living at the time. And they were doing a Christmas show. And I got on email, social media, however, and I relayed the story to his fan club. And the next thing I found out was Vince remembers you. And they set us up with some tickets for that Christmas show. So it's quite an honor, to know that I did something good for a person who went on to become pretty much an international country superstar at the highest level. Last story, as far as with the radio station, we accomplished a lot of things. As far as we went out and raised money for Children's Hospital. We did a lot of broadcasts. We did a lot of community dances. We used to go out and play high school dances. But more than anything, we ran that radio station. Along with myself, we had some other people that were very instrumental. But I was in the transition from a 10-watt station to a 3,000-watt station. And in that transition, we had certain obligations to that licensing. And that licensing said that you had to be on the air. And I, along with a couple of other gentlemen who were running the station at the time, we were able, for a matter of 4 to 5 years, we were on the air every day, 24/7, 365, which is unheard of. Holidays, weekends, school not in session. But I was able to get that station programmed with a variety of programming. And when I say a variety of programming, my senior year, which was my launch into commercial radio, there was a radio talk show in Pittsburgh that featured the Hall of Fame announcer, sporting announcer, Pittsburgh Pirate broadcaster Bob Prince. And it was called the Gunner Network. And I was able to get in touch with the gentleman who was at WYDD at that time, who ran that radio show. His name was Tab Douglas. And I said, what do I have to do to get on the Gunner Network? And he said, oh, you just have to ask. We're looking for affiliates. I said, man, I can do that. I said, I could put that sucker on. It was every Saturday morning. What's the catch? What do I got to do? Well, here's the big thing. That show is sponsored by the Pittsburgh Brewing Company. You got to run the beer commercials. Ooh, that's going to be interesting since we're non-commercial. So I put my head together, and I went, and I went along, and what I did was I contacted Dean Elmo Natale. He was the supreme being at the Student Association, and he knew me quite well. He along with Dr. Paul Bird. So ultimately I went up there and I said, I need to see Mr. Natale. Well, he's looked out, he goes, oh, Mihalik's here. Paul, Mihalik wants to meet with us. Get Chuck Keller on the phone. Because anytime we meet with Mihalik behind closed doors, we got to have an attorney present. I go into the meeting and I said, I want to go ahead and I can be a part of this Gunner Network with Bob Prince. Hey, Paul, listen to that. We're going to have Bob Prince on our radio station. Well, why do you need to meet with us? Go ahead and do it. Do it. I said, Elmo, we got an issue. He said, what's that? We'd have to run beer commercials. I saw him fall back in the chair, the phone drop. He looked over at Paul and said, I told you we had to call Chuck. And I said, no, I've got this figured out. I said, Elmo, I got it all figured out. I said, as long as it passes the mustard, we can do this. And he said, what's that? I said, we're non-commercial, just like public television, public radio. I said, I can run these things, and all we're going to say is, this is a public service being brought to you by the Pittsburgh Brewing Company. We're not actually going to run the radio commercials. They'll let you do that? Yeah. Because I thought that Paul was going to be answering a lot of phone calls, and we were going to get a lot of angry parents. I mean, we know the kids use the beer, but you can't run the commercials. Will they go along with that? I already got it approved. I said, we can run our PSAs, and all we have to say is this program is being brought to you as a public service of Pittsburgh Brewing Company. He said, you got to do me a favor. I said, what's that? He goes, you got to engineer Don't let any other person engineer this show, because if 1 second of that beer commercial goes out over the air, I said, I got this. I got this. But yeah, I take it as one of my greatest accomplishments to run a radio talk show that was syndicated over commercial talk radio and be able to do it at a non-commercial station and at that level. And to tell you quite honestly, it upset the commercial stations that were in the Mon Valley at that time because they couldn't get Bob Prince, and we did. When you think of radio, you think of fun, you think of good times, you think of gloves off, and you think of pretty women.
What am I supposed to say? Okay.
When it was WVCS, I remember one time I went in to freshen up.
I got to be reminded about the WCAL.
Or just say 91.9. You go either way.
All right.
That's Bob, spelled B-O-B, spelled backwards, B-O-B.
Last name Fell, F-E-L-L, like in fell down the steps.
Now, did Jerry have the curly hair then and the mustache?
He had quite the fro back then. Very big hair.
All right, now it's good. We got probably a song in the background that she put in rotation. It's a good chance. So,
And everybody said you're playing too damn much.
yeah, seriously. If you say and spell your name and the year you graduated.
Remember, I went to Cal. Let me think about
That's
it.
true. This has been the hardest question for everybody. So.
I already did a 4-hour show this morning.
I'm like, I thought I saw it on one of your stories.
Yeah. I've been
There,
awake
and then
since
wait.
10 p.m. last night.
The late night and oh jeez, time out. Should have turned that off. Well,
Yeah,
take
let's
two.
start again, yeah. Talk about you being program director. First station manager.
Okay,
That'd probably be it then.
That's good.
It was a different time.